Hello and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. We're here for our review show and we're looking back at Armagh's final league game of the 2022 season. As always, this podcast is brought to you in association with McKeever's Teamwear, proud suppliers of all Armagh GA merchandise. Aaron Kiernan is back with us for this podcast again. As I said, we're looking back at Armagh's final league game, which ended in a 1-point defeat to Donegal in Letterkenny. Aaron, a defeat in the last round of the league. Armagh were already safe, obviously, going into this game. So not the worst thing to happen in the whole campaign. And if that's the last defeat Armagh have this season, it'll hardly worry anybody.
Yeah, to be fair, like we spoke about last week, my feelings going into it was obviously much more riding on it from a Donegal perspective, and it just because of that, it gave Geezer maybe something to think about in terms of what's more important to him at this stage. Would it be good to have got to a league final? It would have been, surely, but it was sort of out of our hands because Mayo needed to lose, and I didn't think that they really would. So you can see from the selection that it wasn't a be all and end all for Geezer. I would say if we weren't playing Donegal in the championship in a few weeks' time, I think he probably would have went all out. But for me, I would have no issues with him mixing up the team, giving a few boys a rest, seeing if some other boys could take on maybe a leadership role. We put Aidan Nugent back in again. It maybe give them the opportunity to free up the likes of Ryan and Groogs to give them a bit of a break, and it'll do them no harm. It was good to get minutes back into Aidan Nugent again because he'd missed a few weeks. So I suppose just the way it panned out then, and the fact that we drew level at the end and probably could have snuck it, you'd be disappointed then that we maybe didn't go and get the win. But for me, ultimately, it's what happens from here on in, and getting all our bodies back and full focus on Ballybofey in a few weeks' time.
And as you said, Rory and Ryan only come on at half time and sort of brought Armagh back into the game. But obviously, Geezer and the team felt that, they had the freedom to do that because they were already safe and there wasn't much riding on the game. Donegal didn't have the same comfort, and probably we were counting on probably Michael Langan and Caolan McGonigal were the only two, sort of guaranteed starters that didn't start yesterday, and Langan came on. Neil McGee come on as well. I think he was a blood sub, but I'm not sure if Neil McGee's a guaranteed starter anymore. But Donegal, they certainly showed their hand more. They were forced to show their hand more than Armagh were.
Yeah, and that was always going to be the case. Their Division 1 status was obviously of paramount importance to them. So whatever fit bodies they could get their hands on, they were going to start. And to be fair, they did. And you're right, the only two players that I could see forcing themselves into the team would be, potentially you throw in Niall O'Donnell, Caolan McGonigal, obviously in midfield option. And then for sure, Michael Langan's going to be going in at wing half forward. Kieran Thompson was another one probably that we had missed out on as well. So they have a few options, but in terms of their mindset going into it, it would have been totally different. Like, it was a championship game for them, where Armagh was only another weekend. So they were definitely, I suppose, the more superior team early on. We were probably just about hanging in there, punished Sean Patton really well for a poor defensive mistake. We probably get a bit of luck in terms of, Michael Murphy's missed penalty. So it was the only good thing coming out of that between himself and McBrearty. They don't seem to be the best at penalty. So maybe as a last resort, if we're stuck in a few weeks' time, we'll give away a penalty instead of someone the opportunity to shoot from play. But yeah, to be fair, team selection that we put out and the changes that we had and how much was riding on it for them, for me that definitely was actually a positive from an Armagh perspective. The fact that we pushed them so hard whenever it's just tough if you don't have anything, like no team goes out to lose and no player goes out to lose, but you just need an edge sometimes, and Donegal obviously had a mental edge because of the importance for them, but for our boys to still be able to put it up to them and to cause them problems all over the field. And for me, that actually was a big positive. We got more minutes into players again that we hadn't seen. The likes of Cian McConville, Justin Kieran's obviously getting some game time. So that's great for them, because it just gives them a wee bit of an insight and gives them a wee bit of belief that they're now capable of the step up. So that, I suppose, coupled with the amount of new players that we blooded throughout the league campaign, I suppose you could look at it one way in terms of everyone probably said Donegal had a bad league campaign, nearly got relegated, similarly to Tyrone, and we end up in equal points with them. But I wouldn't be that concerned about it, because we had our work done, and and then focus does automatically switch to what is most important. And for this team, Division 1 status again was the most important thing, but progression in the Ulster Championship is now what it's all about. And we've known from months out that we have a tough encounter away in Ballybofey. And I have no doubt that's all that was in the players' minds, probably for the past week to 10 days, and what it will be for the next 3 weeks.
And Aaron, just in the last 5 games, probably looking at the results, Armagh's form's worrying. They've only won, one game in the last 5 games. But given that good start and that 4 points picked up against Dublin and Tyrone, do you think Armagh maybe they've been training harder? They've seen this as a chance to get extra work in now that they were, after the first 2 games, they were more or less guaranteed safety. They only needed a point or two picked up in them last 5 games. Do you think Armagh have maybe tailored their training now, and they've went gung-ho at the start? Now they've been in championship mode for the last, month or two?
No, I don't actually, because I suppose just sports science and how you plan out your season, there would be a schedule that sort of would generally be set in terms of workload that you're going to put through players, and with the intensity of the National League now and the shortened season, it probably doesn't allow for a whole pile of intense work in between games, because it's more about just recovering and, I suppose, learning from mistakes and improving on what's going well for you. So from that perspective, no, probably not. I would say that, I suppose, the Monaghan game, if you take each game in its own context, like the Monaghan game, first half, to be fair, we were very lucky to be still in it. But again, we showed huge positives to turn it around, get ourselves into a winning position. And obviously, we got caught with the late equaliser and that there. But in every game, we have been hugely competitive. There's only a kick of a ball even in the games that we did lose. And we have to remember that we're talking about competing against teams at this stage that are talked about as maybe your top 3 or 4 teams for winning the All-Ireland, not just provincial titles, or not staying in Division 1. So that's what you're coming up against in your Kerrys and your Mayos. But there was huge positives to be taken out of those games. I suppose if we reflect on the whole league itself, where we've dropped off, and we did speak about it last week, was the scores and the amount of scores that we were getting early on in the league compared to where it is now. Now, weather has obviously changed this past few weeks, where it's getting a bit better. Fields are getting a bit firmer. Other opposition teams are becoming sort of more full strength. And the biggest compliment that we can pay is that they're paying us a lot more attention. But I think in there, it just gives us an opportunity where we need to look back to what were we doing really well early on in the league, what has dried up for us, how can we get back to getting over 20 points on the board. And we did mention it last week, we have the personnel to do it. It's there. There's, it's not to say we're in big trouble and we don't have the ability to get these scores. We do, but it's just given us an area that we can improve on. And like I said, sometimes in your wins, you don't pick up a whole pile yourself, but I would have thought there'd be huge learnings in those games where we narrowly lost, that the management team will be able to see a few key areas that we can improve on. And I have no doubt that we will. And I think just what happened at the end in Ballybofey yesterday has just sold it out in a few weeks' time. I don't think there'll be a standing space left in it, but again, that's brilliant. That's exactly what you want as a player, and for us as supporters heading to it, it's just put that bit more of an edge in it.
We'll have to talk about it, Aaron, and I don't know, it's impossible to tell what's going on when these sort of rows happen. There's wee bits and pieces, all around. There's different rows going on, and it's hard to tell who even is involved, because it was over by the subs bench, so subs were involved. I seen, stewards involved as well. Like, it's impossible to tell what happened, but this is, I think we did speak about this after the Tyrone incident a couple of weeks ago. Like, you've said it yourself, like it's just one in all in when that happens, like, and you don't want to be taking a backward step, particularly when you're meeting Donegal in the championship. You can't be seen to be taking a backward step. So once something like that begins, whether you like it or not, you sort of have to be involved in it, don't you? You have to run into it.
It is, unfortunately, once the testosterone gets going in young men, this is just what happens. And we all get involved in it, we all do it. And you sit back and you reflect at the end, you be like, Jesus, there's a bit of worry. And I would fear that there will be some, like, to me, there's not a whole pile in it again. But I just would be afraid after what happened in the Tyrone game, where their suspensions weren't overturned, and we know how good they are at getting them overturned, and they all stuck. So the fact that the referees didn't take any action yesterday, it means that everybody can be dealt with in their own individual context. So it would be a worry for me. I suppose the only positive out of it is it couldn't be equally as bad for Donegal as it can for ourselves. I didn't see a huge pile in terms of any clear strikes, even though I know they mentioned it on League Sunday that night about punches being thrown. That to me, it didn't look like any. It was chaos. It was hard to tell what was happening, who was even involved in it. But I do know that whenever it comes to Croke Park, they'll have no problem spending the night sitting and going through in slow motion and picking out as many people as they can. So it'll probably be a nervous enough week to see where we end up with it. It was a disappointing end to it. But yeah, it's just what you said. You see, once it comes to someone's fronting up to you and you know what's coming down the tracks, nobody's going to back down. Like, and unfortunately, these are just one of the things that come off the back of it.
And Croke Park are going to make a meal of this, I think, after the whole Tyrone debate. Like, they got 4, and as you say, they didn't get their suspensions off. Croke Park are going to have to come down hard on this. Like, there's no other. I know Tyrone fans were already giving off on Twitter last night. I think, they were wondering how many of their players are going to be suspended over this and all that nonsense. But Croke Park are going to come down hard. There is going to be suspensions, and it's about who sort of now, isn't it? That's the big worry.
It is, yeah. I would just be preparing myself that we'll not be going to Donegal with a full hand in a few weeks' time. Who it is, Lord knows. But I think, again, this is another one of the, definitely not a perk of social media, but it has a huge influence. Everybody has their say, throws their 2 pence into it, and whether we like it or not, and maybe they would never admit it, it does influence. It just highlights stuff more. It puts thoughts in people's head. It gives them sort of an impression or a narrative of what other people thought happened, and yeah, off the back of it, then action will be taken. So we just have to sit and wait and see, and hope for the best.
And Aaron, as we said, like, this league, first box of the year, Tech Armagh have survived in Division 1. Not only that, but survived with a game in hand and finished the league 3rd in the table. So definitely, as I said earlier, maybe results haven't been as good in the last couple of weeks, but a hugely impressive league from Armagh. They've shown now that they can do this against the big teams. They can compete against the big teams, and it's just about carrying that forward now over the next weeks and months, and hopefully getting a championship run.
It has been, and I think it was the biggest plus. Again, yesterday, right, we conceded 114, but we're never getting overrun with goal opportunities anymore, and that's been consistent from the league has started. A couple of goals is all we've conceded, only 1 a game. That was the most at any stage that we did concede. So that's an absolutely massive improvement from where we were last year, and something that obviously was a key focus. And both the management and the players can see that what their work done was beneficial. But in terms of, you're right, like, just look at the excitement that has built within the county, and like the amount of people that even stayed behind after the games yesterday, looking to get pictures and autographs off the players again. For me, that's been massive, because it's not about the team. The team are your representatives, really, but ultimately there has to be you have to get the whole county involved in it. You have to bring as many on board, because that's where I suppose the buzz and the enjoyment really comes off it. So I would have to say that's been one of the most pleasing aspects for me, is the numbers that are traveling to Armagh games again, because they're enjoying seeing their team playing. They're enjoying the brand of football that they're playing, and they're enjoying seeing us back in Division 1 and competing against the top teams and the best players. So that's been absolutely positive as far as I've been concerned. And I think we're really well set up. I think if you look at the amount of new players that we've blooded, and the consistent levels that we have, like, you remember even whenever we were back in Division 3, like, it was one good week, one bad week. Like, for 2 years now, we've been consistent, at Division 1 level. And that's not something to be taken lightly. We have to remember where we've come from. And for me, it's been a really, really enjoyable league campaign. It's brilliant that we're guaranteed that we have it to look forward to next year. But my whole thing last year was, let's stay in Division 1. Same thing again this year, whenever it was a full calendar, stay in Division 1. But my focus this year was staying in Division 1, but it has to be Championship now. We need to get a run going. We need to get back to an Ulster final. We need to get back to being provincial champions. And for me, I don't see the sense in worrying or waiting for another year or building for something else. And players and management, they don't need to be worrying about all that there, but that's us as supporters. That's what we want to see, and that's where we think they're capable of going. So why wait for another year?
And Aaron, just to finish up, I want to talk about a player of the league who has been your standout. There's been a couple of new players coming in, the likes of Kieran Mackin, Tiernan Kelly. Obviously, Rian O'Neill has been outstanding. You've Charlie O'Byrne switching to wing half back, and he's been really good. Who has been your standout throughout the league campaign?
Well, I suppose early on, obviously, Rian lit it up, and he showed the country again the quality and calibre of player he has. And I know in Crossmaglen, we know how lucky we are to have him, and it's the same throughout the rest of the county. But I would have to say, in terms of boys who have really made their stamp on it and bedded themselves into a team, Tiernan has been super in terms of his work rate, his turnovers, his use of possession, his score getting. He's been brilliant, and for someone so young, looks really composed and at home as a county footballer now. But I would have to agree with you then. I'd say if you look at the whole in terms of consistency levels, the job he's done, but how effective he's been, Kieran Mackin, for me, has been outstanding. I'd only seen a wee bit of him at club football, not a huge amount. And yeah, like, did I think he was going to, well, let's say even go back to the Dublin game, like, was I worried thinking, geez, he's heading into Croke Park for his first game, he's going to come up against Brian Fenton? I genuinely was, because like, it's Croke Park, you're playing against arguably one of the greatest midfielders we've ever had. But I would just say that night alone, the confidence that he would have took from that, he's just carried it throughout the whole league campaign. Unbelievable work ethic. The type of player, to me, looking from the outside in, that you would love to have as a teammate. Very selfless in what he does, and then in possession does the simple things well. So I think in terms of what you could ask for, if you're a management or a teammate that you're playing with, I don't think he could ask for any more than what he gives you every day he goes out. So absolutely massive plus, and looking forward to seeing him now getting his opportunity in Championship in a few weeks' time, and hopefully building on it. Because to be fair, while Division 1 is very competitive, it's still league. It's always another step up in Championship. But I think he's shown more than enough at this stage to confirm that he's fit and ready for it.
So obviously, as always, we'll be building up to that Championship game over the next few weeks, and we'll be back on Thursday's show, and we'll be looking forward to the 2 league finals that Armagh are involved in. The ladies are taking on Kerry in Croke Park in the Division 2 league final, and Armagh hurlers are also in the league final against Tyrone. I think that's on Saturday night. So we'll be previewing both games this weekend, and of course we'll be previewing all the club league games that are starting this week as well. Aaron, thanks very much for coming on, and thanks very much for your help over the last 7 league games for Armagh. We'll hopefully hear from you in the Championship as well.
Not a problem, Sean. Thank you very much.